and I'm going to use the audio to play it. It starts out with the pandemic, and great place to start. That's where Ron DeSantis truly shined.
One Sunday afternoon in September 2020, Jay Bhattacharya, an epidemiologist at Stanford University, was at home in Los Altos when he got an unexpected call. It was Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and he wanted to talk about the coronavirus. In the early months of the pandemic, Bhattacharya had established himself as an outlier among public health experts. He is one of 3 scientists who drafted the Great Barrington Declaration.
So Ron DeSantis reached out to him. Ron DeSantis proactively reached out to, if you follow Jay on Twitter, he's still on Twitter. I don't know how he's able to stick around. He's one of the people who's been against the cabal narrative on the pandemic. So he was like a person that you know, if you were a public official, you would never reach out to. So that's why it's like he was very surprised by this. But Ron DeSantis did reach out.
Which argued that many governments were doing more harm than good by shutting down economies and schools. The only practical approach, they said, would be to protect the most vulnerable, mainly by isolating the elderly, and allow everyone else to go about their lives until vaccines and herd immunity neutralized the disease. With COVID-19 killing hundreds of Americans every day, the signers of the declaration became pariahs in their profession. "I've lost friends," Bhattacharya told me. "I'm lucky to have tenure." DeSantis, young and aggressively confident, was similarly convinced that he could find a better way to handle the virus. Talking with him, Bhattacharya was surprised by his command of the research. He'd read all the medical literature, all of it, not just the abstracts, he told me. The science, though, remained unclear. Did the virus linger on surfaces? Did it travel in droplets or in a fog? And many politicians found that the most appealing solutions were the ones that fit their ideology. For DeSantis, who espouses a libertarian vision of small government and personal freedom, the ideas in the Great Barrington Declaration resonated. In his view, the government, apart from protecting the elderly and making treatments available, should do almost nothing.
Talk about bars. So we look at what happened in 2020 and what was Trump's biggest failure. It was as soon as 2020 hit, he couldn't handle it. And I have never really blamed him for that because everyone was against him. But at the exact same time, you had Ron DeSantis, who did his own research, searched out his own people, talked to his own sources, and he originally did lockdowns for, I think it was 3 weeks, they'll say in the article here in a second, for 3 weeks, and then he said, no, that's not the way. No one else, I don't think anybody else in the country did that. I don't think any other executive in the country did that. That's his campaign ad right there. He doesn't need to do what that Eric Greitens did, busting through a door with the Navy SEAL team. That's a real ad where he really fought for your freedom on a political level.
Join the MAGA crew. Get a rhino hunting permit. I'm pro 2A. I don't need to see a gun in your political ad. That goes for you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or anybody else. I know it's good for commercialization and all that.
Go to the website below and sign up to win my .50 caliber gun before Joe Biden bans it.
But I don't need that. What I need is proof that you would or will, or even better, have fought for freedoms. That is a guy who has on his resume, when everybody in the world was against where he was, he fought for freedom for Florida. That's why Lisa earlier in this chat was like, no, you can't have him. Yeah, we're going to need him. That's for damn sure.
Initially, as the virus began spreading in Florida, DeSantis had ordered a statewide lockdown in accordance with Dr. Anthony Fauci's recommendations. 3 weeks later, he changed his mind. "We will never do any of these lockdowns again," he said. After talking to Bhattacharya, he lifted nearly all remaining restrictions on schools, government buildings, stores, restaurants, and other private businesses, and halted the enforcement of mask mandates. As the death toll mounted, he was mocked by critics as Death Santis and denounced by the mainstream press. Any public distrust of this administration has been well earned, the Miami Herald editorial board wrote. We can't trust the governor with our lives. A former political advisor with knowledge of the COVID response told me that DeSantis was unfazed. We were getting crucified, but to him it was just noise. DeSantis revels in defying what he sees as a corrupt and self-satisfied liberal establishment. Those who work closely with him say that he is unique among elected officials in his disregard for public opinion and the press. Ron's strength as a politician is that he doesn't give a fuck, a Republican consultant who knows him told me. Ron's weakness as a politician is that he doesn't give a fuck. Big donors, he doesn't give a shit. Cancels on them all the time.
Woo! This is in the New Yorker. This is from the New Yorker, in the New Yorker. So I don't know if this is a concern. I don't know the New Yorker well. I always thought they were an establishment rag. Maybe this is a conservative writer. I don't know. But as the death toll mounted, he was mocked. We all remember this. It just happened, and he was labeled as Death Santis. All this pressure from his donors and everybody. Like, you're not going along. You're taking a risk. Imagine if you just at your job, the relationship isn't boss with the federal government and the state, obviously, but it's kind of similar where it's like your boss says, no, we're all doing this. We're all locking down. And everybody in the world damn near is locking down. Trudeau and all the people who want to be president are all locking down everywhere. Abbott locked down in Texas. Everybody locked down. Italy locked down. The whole world locked down. And DeSantis was like, nah, that don't make no sense to me. That's who we want to run. That's why I'm excited. Because on this topic, he and comic Dave Smith would agree. Who else would agree? Jimmy Dore would agree. And they're all, you got left, you got libertarian, and you got, I would call him authoritarian, but I was going to call him an authoritarian libertarian. They're going to kill me for, people who value liberty would kill me for that. I think Ron DeSantis is an authoritarian liberal. He wants to force his libertarianism on you. But I'm good with that. And Nick Fuentes, if you call him far right or whatever you call him, white nationalist, not in a racist or bad way, but he would agree too. On the fundamental issue, we have to agree on that. Tulsi Gabbard would agree on that. I don't know where Yang stands on that. I have to look that up. How could you not be excited by that? DeSantis revels in defying what he sees as a corrupt and self-satisfied liberal establishment. Those who work closely with him say that he's unique among elected officials in his disregard for public opinion and the press. Ron's strength as a politician is that he doesn't give a fuck. And Republican consultants who know him told me his biggest weakness is that he doesn't give a fuck. That's what we want. Big donors, he doesn't give a shit. Cancels on them all the time. So when you looked at Disney, I was like, where did this come from? It makes perfect sense now. If you look at it, he has the cojones. Remember what happened with Disney. They wanted to get into the culture wars. And Ron DeSantis says, I'm not your average politician. I'm not Donald Trump. You fuck around, you will find out. And they did, real quickly. Man, this guy, there's a lot to like. That's all I'm going to have to say. I've gone back, chatted back and forth with one of my favorite writers, editors, Cassandra McDonald, on this. And I think she's kind of shaky on him too. But I was shaky on him too. And I was like, I think we just got to go along for the ride at this point.